A desperate plea. In the Grand Council chambers of the Galactic Alliance, representatives from 100 alien species gathered for an emergency meeting. The air was thick with tension and fear. At the central podium, Ambassador Xyloth of the Betelgeusian Federation cleared his throat, his purple robes shimmering under the lights. Esteemed members of the Alliance, he began, his voice amplified and translated into dozens of languages. We stand on the brink of annihilation. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Everyone knew why they were here. The Zorgans, a race of ruthless conquerors, had swept across the galaxy like a plague, subjugating or destroying every civilization they encountered. Their advanced technology and merciless tactics had overwhelmed even the mightiest of species. The Zorgans will reach the core worlds within a cycle, Xyloth continued gravely. None have been able to stand against them. Our combined fleets lie in ruin. Billions are dead or enslaved. He paused, his large eyes glistening with emotion. We have but one hope left. The chamber fell silent, every eye upon him. Slowly, Xyloth raised a long, slender finger and pointed at a small blue marble floating at the edge of the galactic map. Earth, he said. We must beg the Deathworlders for aid. Pandemonium erupted. Shouts of disbelief and outrage filled the air. The humans, cried the arachnoid delegate, waving his forelix. Those savage primitives. They are barely a Type Ia civilization, protested the Sician counselor, her flanged skull flushing pink. What could they possibly offer against the might of the Zorgans? Xyloth raised his hands for calm. Alone, perhaps little. But the humans have a saying. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. With our technology and their unique strengths, we may have a chance. Unique? Scoffed the arachnoid. You mean their brutality, their insanity. They are called Deathworlders for a reason. And that is exactly why we need them. Xyloth snapped. He gestured at the map, where the angry red of Zorgan conquests spread like a bleeding wound across the galaxy. We have tried reason. We have tried diplomacy. All have failed. The Zorgans understand only violence and death. To defeat them, we need those who speak their language. Silence fell once more as the enormity of the situation pressed down upon the assembled aliens. For all their advancement, for all their enlightenment, they had no answer to the Zorgan threat. No answer but one. We are out of options, Xyloth said quietly. I move to formally request aid from the humans of Earth. All in favor. One by one, tentacles, claws, and appendages rose in assent. The decision was made. The fate of the galaxy would rest in human hands. As the council moved on to debating the specifics of the request, Xyloth sagged back in his chair, feeling the weight of the future pressing upon him. He could only pray they had not made a terrible mistake. The humans were unpredictable, dangerous, their capabilities shrouded in rumor and mystery. They were a young race, prone to passion and violence. But as he watched the inexorable spread of the Zorgan advance across the star map, Xyloth concluded that if passion and violence were to be their salvation, then perhaps it was time to embrace the way of the Deathworlders. For if humanity could not stop the Zorgan juggernaut, he feared no one could. Humanity rises to the challenge. When the alien transmission reached Earth, it caused an immediate uproar. Social media exploded with speculation and debate. World leaders convened emergency meetings behind closed doors. The revelation that humanity was not alone in the universe, that a vast galactic community was pleading for their help, was almost too much to absorb. In the White House Situation Room, President Elisa Martinez stared at the star map hovering over the conference table, the red tide of Zorgan conquests spreading ominously close to a little blue dot marked Sol. Her military advisors looked as shocked as she felt. Let me get this straight, she said. A bunch of aliens show up out of nowhere, tell us we're not alone, and then ask us to fight their war for them against some evil empire straight out of a bad sci-fi flick. Is this some kind of joke? General Graves, a grizzled veteran of too many terrestrial conflicts, shook his head. No joke, Madam President, the Joint Chiefs have been analyzing the data the aliens sent. It all checks out. The threat is real. Martines pinched the bridge of her nose. But why us? Why Earth? Surely in a galaxy of advanced civilizations, we're just primitive upstarts. What do they expect us to do against an enemy that conquered them? If I may, Madam President, interjected Dr. Singh, the National Science Advisor. Based on the intelligence we've gathered, it seems we have some unique advantages. Our gravity, for one, is much higher than the galactic standard. That means we're stronger, tougher, more resilient than most species. Same goes for our ecosystem. The biochemistry and immune systems that evolved to handle Earth's challenges are apparently quite rare and robust compared to the galactic norm. So we're space orcs, is what you're saying, Martinez remarked dryly. There's also the matter of our weaponry, General Graves added. Turns out most spacefaring civilizations moved on from chemical-propelled kinetic weapons eons ago, considering them primitive and limited. But combined with our high-gravity muscles, so-called primitive guns and bombs could be surprisingly effective. The president leaned back, considering. So the aliens want us to be their attack dogs, their blunt instrument against these organs. It's more than that, Singh said softly. They're asking for our help, to stand with them against conquest and tyranny. Think of the lives at stake, the civilizations. We have a chance to do real good here, to make a difference on a galactic scale. A heavy silence descended on the room as the enormity of the choice settled upon them all. Martines looked at each face in turn, seeing the same conflicted mix of fear, excitement, and resolute determination that churned within her own heart. This won't be an easy sell, she said at last. There will be resistance, protests, fear. But if we're going to do this, we do it together. As one world, one people. It's time for humanity to step up. She straightened, her voice ringing with conviction. Get me the UN Security Council and the heads of NATO, ASEAN, the AU and SCO. It's time to bring our allies into the fold. The galaxy has asked for our help. Let's show them what humanity is made of. As her staff scrambled into action, Martinez turned back to the star map, watching the little blue marble that was Earth, so small against the vast sea of stars. For better or for worse, humanity's fate would be decided out there, among the shining lights of distant suns. Silently, she whispered a prayer for the brave men and women who would carry their species' banner into the greatest challenge it had ever faced. The Deathworlders were going to war. First contact, first impressions. The first meeting between the human fleet and their alien allies was a tense affair, freighted with anticipation and uncertainty on both sides. As the vanguard of Earth's space forces dropped out of warp at the rendezvous coordinates, they found themselves amid an astonishing vista of sleek, organic-looking ships in a wild array of shapes and sizes, representing the combined might of a dozen starfaring species. On the bridge of the USS Athena, flagship of the human contingent, Admiral Mira Khatri struggled to contain her awe at the sight. Beside her, Ambassador Singh, official liaison to the Galactic Alliance, looked equally stunned. My God, Singh breathed. Look at them all. I knew the briefings said the Alliance spanned hundreds of worlds, but to actually see it. Khatri nodded, eyes glued to the view screen. The differences between the ships were striking. Some long and sinuous, others bulbous and asymmetrical, in colors ranging from shimmering silver to pulsing bioluminescent purple. And yet a clear commonality of design philosophy united them, an aesthetic both utterly alien and strangely beautiful to human eyes. A hail lit up the comms board, and a slender, purple-robed alien appeared on screen. Greetings, people of Earth, the creature said, its voice musical and precise. I am Ambassador Zyloth of the Betelgeusian Federation. On behalf of the Galactic Alliance, we welcome you and thank you for your aid in our desperate hour. Khatri and Singh both dipped their heads in respectful nods. Ambassador Zyloth, I am Admiral Khatri of the United Earth Space Forces, "And this is Ambassador Singh of the Terran Diplomatic Court," Chatri said. "We are honored to stand with you against the Zorgon threat." As the formalities concluded and the combined fleet set out toward the front lines, the differences between the allies quickly became apparent. Used to the cramped and utilitarian conditions of their own ships, the human crews marveled at the soaring atriums, sleek organic lines, and exotic comforts of the alien vessels they visited. But what truly set the humans apart was their sheer physicality. In the low gravity preferred by most of the Alliance races, Earth-born muscles granted them near superhuman strength and agility. Alien crew members gaped as human Marines casually hefted equipment that would have strained a vegan cargo loader, or leaked between decks with the ease of a score treetop dweller. The gulf in military culture was equally pronounced. While the Alliance forces favored elegant energy weapons and deflector shields, the human ships bristled with projectile cannons, missile batteries, and thick armor plating. In simulation after simulation, the human primitive weapons proved devastating, their chemical-propelled rounds and fusion warheads slicing through the Zorgon's advanced defenses in a way the Alliance's weapons could not. But not all the differences were positive. More than one alien diplomat blanched at the human appetite for meat, the messy and physical nature of their meals. The competitiveness and aggression humans showed even in friendly sports and games struck many as uncouth and barbarian. Most of all, the relish with which human warriors threw themselves into training and preparation for the coming battles unnerved their gentler allies. Aboard the Athena, as the fleet hurtled toward its destined confrontation with the Zorgon Armada, Admiral Chatri watched her crew drill tirelessly, their faces alight with determination and an almost eager anticipation. She understood the effect it had on their allies, but she also understood its cause. Humans had always been a race of explorers, adventurers, fighters. Now, for the first time, they had a cause and a calling that united all humanity, a chance to prove their worth on a galactic stage. When word came that the Zorgon fleet had been sighted, that battle was imminent, the mood among the human ships was almost jubilant. In the Athena's CIC, as Chatri strapped on her helmet and reviewed the tactical plot one last time, she felt a deep swell of pride suffuse her being. They were Deathworlders, Terrans, the children of Earth. And the galaxy was about to learn just what that meant. Chatri smiled a fierce, feral smile. It was time to introduce the Zorgons to a little concept called human ingenuity, grit, and sheer bloody-mindedness. "All hands, battle stations," she ordered, her voice ringing through the ship. "Let's show these ETs how we do things downtown." Turning the tide. The first clash between the Allied fleet and the Zorgon Armada sent shockwaves reverberating across the galaxy. Never before had the juggernaut of the Zorgon advance been halted, much less driven back. But now, under the brilliant leadership of human commanders and the ferocious onslaught of human guns and ships, the invaders were suddenly on the defensive. At the forefront of the action was Admiral Chatri and her daring tactical innovations. Realizing that human ships could withstand stresses and accelerations far beyond their alien counterparts, she pioneered a new form of high-speed, three-dimensional warfare that left the Zorgons reeling. Human strike craft zigzagged through the enemy formations at breakneck speeds, pummeling the lumbering Zorgon dreadnoughts with a relentless hail of kinetic rounds and fusion missiles. On the ground, too, human troops proved their mettle. The Zorgon legions, so used to steamrolling over the fragile beings of the Alliance, found themselves stymied by the sheer tenacity and resilience of Terran Marines. In the thick jungles of Sirius IV and the scorching deserts of Epsilon Eridani, human forces went toe-to-toe with the galaxy's most feared warriors and emerged bloodied but unbowed. As they finally abandoned their age-old strength-in-numbers assault approach and adopted more human infantry tactics like improvised weaponry, unpredictable small-unit maneuvers, and even psychological warfare, the Alliance races watched in awe and no small amount of trepidation. The savagery and relentlessness of human fighters both amazed and appalled the gentler species. But none could deny the results. One by one, The worlds conquered by the Zorgans fell back into Alliance hands. Downtrodden populations emerged from hiding to cheer their liberators, hailing the legendary Deathworlders as saviors and heroes. But the mood among the human forces was far from celebratory. Every victory had been hard-fought, every inch of ground paid for in blood and lives. In the command center of Firebase Theta on newly liberated Kepler-22, General Ameri stared at the holographic tactical display, watching the Zorgan line slowly recede. "They're falling back on all fronts," reported Colonel Tankovic, his XO. "Latest intelligence suggests they're massing for a final stand in the Gliese system, their core worlds." Amari grunted. "Then that's where we'll end this." He glanced up at his assembled staff, his dark eyes flinty. "But something doesn't feel right. The Zorgans are too canny, too cunning to just let themselves be backed into a corner like this. We're missing something." "Sir." A young lieutenant monitoring the comms burst into the room, her face pale. "New orders from High Command. We're to redeploy immediately to Chi Sagittari. The Zorgans have launched an all-out offensive. They're making a push for the Alliance homeworlds." Amari cursed. The pieces suddenly fell into place. "It's a trap. They suckered us in. Let us stretch our forces thin to liberate the Rim worlds, all to clear a path to the heart of the Alliance." He spun to the comms officer. "Get me a direct line to Admiral Katri. Apprise her of the situation and recommend an immediate counterattack. We'll show these bastards what a Terran blitzkrieg looks like." As his staff scrambled to action, Ameri turned back to the holomap, his jaw set. The Zorgans had played their hand well, he had to admit. Sacrifice the pawns to pin down the enemy's fighting arm, then strike directly at the heart. Classic misdirection. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had assumed their opponent would act with cold, calculating logic, that they would never risk their core strength for the sake of peripheral territories and alien populations. They had assumed their foe was like them. But that, Ameri mused grimly, was the problem with fighting humans. The Zorgans faced an enemy that didn't think in terms of acceptable losses or strategic retreats. Humanity would never abandon an ally to death and subjugation, never consider a call for aid as anything but inviolable. The Zorgans, in all their cunning, had failed to account for the most potent weapon in the human arsenal, the unshakable conviction that there were principles worth dying for, that there were prices too high to pay for survival. They were about to learn the true meaning of the Terran creed. No one gets left behind. And by the time they did, if Ameri had anything to say about it, it would be too late. The Deathworlders were coming, to reap a bloody toll for every life lost, every world burned. "Hold fast," he whispered to the distant, beleaguered defenders. "The cavalry's on its way. And we're bringing hell with us." Victory and revelations. The Zorgan push into the heart of Alliance space was as brutal as it was swift. Despite heroic resistance from local defense forces, the sheer weight of the onslaught swept all before it. Core worlds that had not seen conflict in millennia burned under the merciless Zorgan guns. Ancient civilizations teetered on the brink of annihilation. The seat of the Galactic Alliance itself, the shining planet of Concordia, lay besieged, its once gleaming towers crumbling under relentless orbital bombardment. But even as all seemed lost, a new force entered the fray. Admiral Katri's battle group, the pride of the Terran fleet, dropped out of warp at the edge of the Concordia system like avenging angels, their hulls still scared and scorched from the desperate fighting in the Rim worlds. At Katri's side stood the grizzled visage of General Ameri, his command transferred to the flagship to coordinate the ground assault. Together, they surveyed the tactical display, taking in the serried ranks of Zorgan ships encasing the planet in a web of death. "We're outnumbered 3-1, Ameri growled. "And they've had time to dig in, fortify their positions." Katri smiled thinly. "Good. I'd hate for this to be too easy." She turned to her crew, her voice ringing across the bridge. "This is it, people. The line in the sand. The Zorgans think they've got this sewn up. They think we'll flinch from the cost, that we don't have the stomach for a knockdown, drag-out slugging match. She leaned forward, her eyes blazing. Let's show them what humanity does to bullies who prey on the weak. Let's show them what it means to pick a fight with Earth. All ships, all units, engage. What followed was a battle unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The human ships tore into the Zorgon lines like wolves among sheep, their guns never ceasing, pouring a relentless storm of fire into the enemy. Fighters danced and whirled in intricate deadly ballets, Terran pilots pushing their craft to limits of physics and sanity. On the ground, Ameri's Marines fought like men and women possessed, every soldier driven by the absolute determination that they would rather die than yield. In the rubble-strewn streets of Concordia's capital, hastily assembled defensive positions held out against overwhelming odds, buying time with their lives for civilians to flee to safety. Hour bled into bloody hour, and slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. The Zorgon fleet, unaccustomed to such ferocious resistance, began to waver, then crumble. Their ground forces, faced with an enemy that simply refused to break, started to give ground, then to rout. And as the Terran forces clawed their way towards the planet's surface, as the last pockets of Zorgon resistance were overrun, and the Alliance banner once more raised over Concordia's tallest tower, they discovered a terrible truth. In the depths of the Zorgon command post, amid the blasted corpses of the enemy leadership, Ameri's troops found records, communications that painted a chilling picture. The Zorgons, it seemed, had not invaded out of mere greed or malice. They had been fleeing something, a horror from the depths of uncharted space that had all but annihilated their civilization. Their conquest of the Alliance had been a last, desperate attempt to muster enough strength, enough resources, to stand against the coming storm. A storm that now, with the Zorgon defeat, had a clear path into the very heart of the galaxy. As the battered victors gathered in the ruins of Concordia to celebrate their triumph and mourn their dead, this revelation cast a pall over the proceedings. Recriminations and arguments flew thick and fast. Some wanted to abandon the Zorgons to their fate as punishment for their crimes. Others counseled that a threat to any was a threat to all. In the end, it was the humans who settled the matter. In a historic address to the Alliance Senate, Ambassador Singh voiced a simple, profound truth. If the galaxy stood divided, it would fall. Only together, by forgiving past enmities and uniting against the common foe, could they hope to weather the oncoming crisis. Under human leadership, an ambitious plan was put forward. The remnants of the Zorgon civilization would be given succor and aid in exchange for their full commitment to the coming fight. The military might of the Alliance would be marshaled as never before, with human strategic and tactical genius guiding the effort. And at the tip of the spear, the combined fleets placed under the command of the one leader all sides trusted to steer them through the fire to come, Admiral Katri. As she stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched the mightiest armada the galaxy had ever known assemble under her banner, Chatri reflected on the strange twists of fate that had brought them to this pass. Barely a cycle ago, the races of the Alliance had looked upon humans as upstart primitives, useful only for their capacity for violence. Now those same primitive qualities, resilience, adaptability, sheer bloody-minded determination, had made humanity the keystone of galactic civilization. The Deathworlders had become the shield and sword of all life, the guardians standing against the dark. And though the trials to come would be terrible indeed, Katri found she had no doubt that they would prevail. For in the crucible of this great crisis, she saw the potential for an even greater unity, a joining of human courage and alien wisdom into something new and profound. And if they could achieve that, if they could forge a true alliance of all the sentient races, then perhaps the greatest challenge would not be surviving the battle to come, but building the peace that would follow. A peace with humanity, once feared as the scourge of civilized space, now hailed as its brightest hope. Katri smiled at the thought. One thing was certain, whatever else the future held, it would not be boring. She keyed the fleet-wide calm, her voice calm and determined as it echoed to every ship, every soldier preparing for the fight of their lives. "This is Admiral Catry to all units. I know you're tired. I know you're scared. But this is what we trained for. This is what we fought for. Out there is an enemy that means to wipe out every living thing in this galaxy. It's big, it's bad, and it's coming right for us. But you know what? To hell with them. They want to see what Deathworlders can do when we're fighting for the ones we love. Let's show them. Lock and load, people. We've got a galaxy to save." As an exultant roar filled the comms, Catry felt a fierce grin stretch her lips. The Zorgans had run from this fight. The Alliance had tried to avoid it. But humanity would meet this challenge as they had every other. Head on, guns blazing, with a defiant smile and a roar of "Come on, you bastards. Come and have a go if you think you're hard enough." They were Terrans. They were the Deathworlders. And they had a galaxy to protect. The end.